Well, good day, viewers. I am Kamal Haynes. Well, welcome to another featured interview brought to you by 284 Media. Well, today I will be interviewing two special guests about an exciting couples event that is slated for February 2023 in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Well, there are Chantal Doswell, a licensed clinical social worker and integrated trauma therapist, and Dr. Calissa Cruikshank, who is a medical doctor and a yoga and meditation instructor. Well, the two specialists will be providing in-depth details about this event, the health benefits it promises to offer the participants, how similar types of events stand to benefit the BVI, and also how you, the viewers, can become a part of the event. We'll dive into all the details right after a word from our sponsors.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What you really? Hey, this ain't like you, you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home, keeping out of trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
Shit. I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
Well, welcome back, viewers. Well, as mentioned before the break, I have joining me in studio integrated trauma therapist Chantal Doswell and medical doctor, yoga and meditation instructor Dr. Calissa Cruikshank. Well, welcome, Ms. Doswell and Dr. Cruikshank.
Hi.
Thank you.
Well, for those wondering, Chantal Doswell, in addition to being a licensed clinical social worker and integrated trauma therapist, is an owner of Ordinary Healing LLC, a New York-based therapy practice with a focus on Black and Indigenous people of color clients who have experienced complex trauma. Well, she also serves as a professor at Columbia University School of Social Work and leads trauma-focused workshops for youth and adults in the city. Meanwhile, Dr. Calissa Cruikshank, in addition to being a medical doctor, yoga and meditation instructor, is an owner and founder of the Sangha British Virgin Islands, which is aimed at promoting health awareness, lifestyle change, and fitness in the territory. But the two guests are also part of the Black Love Retreat team, which is responsible for hosting this couples retreat in February 2023. So that leads to my first set of questions. Firstly, speak about Black Love Retreat and what it represents.
Well, the idea behind this retreat was to really try to inform the idea that couples retreats are nice, but Black couples in particular have specific needs that might be different and yet predictable from the average couple. One of the most obvious things is that most Black people have experienced complex trauma, meaning they haven't been through one bad thing, but they've actually been through maybe a family lifetime of things that are really difficult on top of being in a system that oppresses them. And so we're trying to work in both the expertise that I have in trauma, the couples therapist who's not sitting with us here today, and his expertise in communication and conflict resolution, along with the body-based healing that comes from doing yoga and meditation that Kalisha's sort of bringing in for us so that Black folks can heal from the body up and from the mind down.
Yes.
And anything to add, Dr. Cruikshank?
Like what Chantal said, the intention is to create a safe space for persons, of our, ethnic group, right? Representation matters. And as she said, communication is a basic tool that we would need in all aspects of our life, especially as it relates to our relationships. So that's one of the things that we'll be working on, we'll be focusing on, communication through therapy as well through yoga practice, breathing, meditation.
Okay, great. And what was the inspiration behind the creation of Black Love Retreat?
I was actually doing a random event with this couples therapist, and he and I were talking at about the pandemic and how couples therapy has been for him and how trauma therapy has been for me, and how many relational issues were coming up because people were stuck in the house with somebody who they loved, you know, but still who was triggering stuff and maybe actually really creating a situation that was likely that they weren't going to be able to stay in that relationship anymore, right? And so when you're hearing the same thing over and over and over and over, you're like, why don't we collect these people together in a group and just kind of give everybody what they need after this period? Because domestic violence went up. Right, foster care cases where children were being abused went up.
Yes.
There were more tension in couples and relationships. Divorces started to happen, right? And so even though a lot of people had babies over the pandemic, the stress from having a baby wasn't really in the normal context of what it would be like to have support and family around you. And so we're trying to address not just the need for generations for Black folks to have healthy relationships, but then specifically right now in this moment in time, trying to move from a place of we've been hurt, we've been traumatized, we've been sick, to a place of we're healed and connected a bit more, and we can use each other to help moving forward in that healing.
Okay, great. You actually touched on one of my questions I had later on as well. So how long has the brand been in existence, and how many of these couple events have your team hosted in the past?
Now, my brand and Max Stanley, who's the couples therapist, both of us have been in practice for over 5 years privately, right? I've been in practice in my trauma practice for 10 years. So there's a lot of stuff that I had to learn first before this even could be a thing. But I guess realistically, this is the first of its kind, right? We actually had to sit down. Me and Kalisa sat down, right? Went through each of the yoga sessions that were potentially there. What could they be for? What do Black couples need here?
Yeah, because this is not my first retreat. Similar to Chantel, I've been practicing yoga personally for over 10 years. And then I started the Sangha BVI group back in 2017, just before the pandemic. And I mean, just for the hurricane, sorry. And what I meant to say is that we have been in a state of chronic stress from 2017 coming forward. We have, there are a lot of triggers that has happened. And I think with the pandemic, more so now than before, persons realize that they need help coping.
Yeah.
Right? This retreat, we'll be focusing on Black couples, Black love, strengthening the family, and by extension the community with both of our expertise combined.
Yeah.
My next question, some persons may question whether this type of event actually garner results. Speak about some of the testimonies that would have resulted from previous events you guys would have hosted.
And so because this is sort of the first of its kind retreat, right? There's a combination of things that are effective that we're doing, right? Our couples therapist is from one of the most evidence-based couples institutes in the world. They have been doing couples research for over 40 years. They have researched thousands of couples, not hundreds of couples, thousands of couples from a physiological, like, what heartbeat is happening right now, how deep is their partner breathing right now, like observational kind of research. And the Institute works backwards from what happy couples do, happy lasting marriages do, and then turn that into practice, right? Like, this is how you resolve arguments in a happy couple. This is how you resolve conflict. This is how you connect. This is what it looks like, right? There's a map. There are structured things that you can do. It's not luck. It's not just like, we had great chemistry and so we lasted forever, right? There's skills. I mean, these are real skills. And so we're talking about people being able to argue in a much shorter amount of time, right? Like, I've had people go, usually that would have taken us 3 days to resolve, and instead it took us 40 minutes because of the skills that we learned here, right? Trauma work, though, what I do can take a very long time. If you don't do body-based work like I do, like Kalisa does, trauma work can take years. And so you can be in a relationship and have every logical idea that what you're doing isn't good and still not quite have the impulse control to do better, right? And so what I'm doing with people in a very short amount of time is working from the triggers, right, that they feel when their partner is doing stuff, to insight, hopefully with their partner there to get that insight, right? And then moving into a place of, now that we've got the insight, can we reprocess how triggering this really is for you? I'm trained in something called EMDR. It's really evidence-based, so much so that it started with military members only. because their PTSD was coming into their dreams, their homes, their relationships, and it was not really working for them to go to talk therapy. Like, it just wasn't. And so the type of therapy that I do is probably one of the most effective therapies. It's covered very heavily by insurance practices, because what tends to happen for me is in maybe a few months, people can do what they do in like 10 years in therapy. And so the trauma results really are about, can you imagine that something literally makes your body feel triggered right now? Yes. And I could take you in less than 2 days from that feeling to feeling safe, right? That's actually what, I'm not promising something I've never seen, right? That's what I do every day for people. And so that's really part of what I'm excited to bring to couples therapy, because if people feel safe with each other,
yes,
the communication is so much easier from that point forward.
And as it relates to the couples therapy, the yoga would be suited to couples as well. We'll be doing couples yoga as well as tantric yoga, which deals with a lot of communication, feeling safe, building trust, being present, touch. Things that are very important in any form of healthy relationship, especially marriages.
So speak about some of the feedback, as you would have touched on the yoga aspect of it and meditation-wise, that you would have gotten from people in the past, whether couples or individuals, as it speaks to results.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, this is not my first retreat. I did a retreat about 5 years ago, and this was more about health and wellness, healthy eating, having that holistic approach to individuals. We know that persons are multifactorial, right? We have our physical body, but with yoga we focus on the mind, body, and spirit, right? In our lives, we tend to get a bit distracted in the pursuit of whatever we're seeking after. What does the yoga practice does, it brings awareness, it brings you into this moment, helping with your being aware, in starting mindful practices, being able to break that routine and just be present. It also helps the same way Chantel does a lot of trauma therapy. Yoga also helps with that as well, because sometimes when it comes to stress, persons carry stress in their bodies differently. Persons react to stress in different ways, whether it affects your sleeping pattern, your eating pattern, or your regular functioning. It can also affect it can manifest as different physical ailments. So through the yoga, we'll be doing healing, but from the physical side, right? Breathing, stretches, meditation with your partner during the retreat.
Okay, great. So now let's speak about the upcoming couples retreat event, which is slated for February 2023. What is the exact date for the event, and which part of the BVI will the event be held?
So the event is on 2/22/23. So February 22nd, 2023 until the 26th. So it's 5 days, 4 nights, and it's gonna be in Tortola. So the capital of the BVI, that's where we're gonna be, on Wyndham Lambert Resort, which is right off Lambert Bay Beach.
And what are some of the activities? 4 nights, 5 days is a long time.
It's a long time. It's a good vacation, you know what I mean? So we're gonna try to balance out the experience with being space for you to connect, not just with your partner, but with the other couples who you're sharing this experience with. Part of the beauty of a group is that you're seeing other people who are going through similar experiences and getting a chance to kind of learn, not just from experts, but from lived wisdom and experience and similar people with similar issues in history, which is why a retreat for Black folks is also really helpful, because you're talking to people like you, right? In couples like you, with concerns like you. So you're not the only couple who's there. We've even been getting some responses from interracial couples wondering if that's okay. And I'm like, absolutely. If anybody needs deeper insight into what is a typical issue for a Black couple, an interracial couple, when you're like, is it because I'm Latina that I don't get this? Or what is happening? A group is a perfect setting to ask that kind of question, right? So we're not only doing workshops, so there will be workshops sort of in the morning and evenings most days. One day is going to be our intimacy day, which means that we're going to go just have a nice little yacht party, some beach, lunch, and then come back, do some tantric yoga and meditation. And then you get to go off with your partner and do with that what you want to do with that. But other days we're going to have couples games, which will be hosted by the fourth part of our team, Trina Be Real, who's a comedian and actress. So this is not heavy, couples retreat every night, every day.
Yes.
But we're also going to be doing things that are body-based workshops for trauma, and then sort of role plays, if you could imagine that, right? So that we can learn what it looks like to communicate well. What does it look like to have intimacy go well, right? And so there's a combination of just role play, relaxation, right, on this beautiful island with its beautiful beaches, and then yoga that's really going to help reinforce the body comfort, right?
Yes.
Because we want to bring up the really uncomfortable stuff and then connect with your partner so we can have that nice coming back together experience.
Yes.
Okay, great. And for those who may be wondering, why was the BVI the choice of destination for this event?
Well, first of all, my family's from here. So there's that. But one of the things if you're from here is that this is a really beautiful place that not a lot of people know of.
That's true.
That's really a fact. I mean, I go to New York and I tell people where I'm from and they don't know. They never heard of it. They've been to Dominican Republic 700 times. They've been to, they've been to Jamaica. They've been to Curacao. They've been to these other islands. But this beautiful place with these white sandy beaches and all of these places that I've been here through my own family trauma, and just standing on this island rather than standing at home is so much more grounding. It's so much better than having it done in the middle of city craziness, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I want people to come to the BVI as more than just a dock and the cruises, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't want you to just come to the docks and then roll out, right? There were beautiful experiences to have here, people with skills here. There were all sorts of things that really, I think, could grow in this island in a way that would be really healing and beautiful, especially after something like Irma, which took so many people's livelihood and kind of turned it upside down. And I know for my family that's true too, right? So a lot of this is about just trying to bring people to a space that for me has been really healing. That's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
And this is something that we want to do continuously. We want this to be one of those yearly events that persons look forward to. Coming to the Virgin Islands, when is going to be the next Black Love Retreat, Black Love Retreat 2024, 2025, and onwards.
Okay, that's great. My next question in terms of, the interest shown thus far, how many couples have reached out to you guys already, and from which countries have you been getting interest from as well?
We've been getting a lot of sort of folks from the US, obviously, so we've got some folks from both coasts and all over the US that have reached out. We've got a couple of folks from the Bahamas, some people from the BVI who have reached out, and then some people within the diaspora that live somewhere like London have reached out too. A lot of the folks who are reaching out are really specifically hungry, right, for trying to figure out if the tools offered will really address the kind of concerns that they have within their relationship, most of which in these communities tend to be related to sometimes spirituality, believe it or not, right? Like, how strong is the faith that this is gonna be where we stick and commit, right? And then also dealing with some of the issues that on the surface may not seem like trauma, right? Or may not seem like that's really where they're coming from. But when you hear really messy relationships and really disorganized stuff, that's almost certainly trauma, like the reason it looks like that. And so we've been getting a lot of, from some of the more heavily Black states in the US. So we have places like Florida, New York, Texas, right, where people are reaching out a lot. And then a lot of the islands that have a lot of Black folks on them, right, in the diaspora. So places like the BVI, places like Trinidad, places like Jamaica, people are in the same boat trying to figure out the same stuff.
Yes.
Okay, great. And also speak about how such an event can benefit the territory, obviously with that economic value that it brings, as well as tourism promotion, from that perspective too.
Well, this is, like we said, the first of its kind, with intention to do this event with years to come. It can only benefit the BVI, the people of the BVI, Next year is to be at Lambert. Who knows where it's going to be after that? We always looking forward for persons who will join our team, who share the same vision, right? So it's an opportunity to market, it's an opportunity to innovate for other entrepreneurs to get on board, sponsorship,
Absolutely.
Branding. So it's literally a blank canvas right now with room to grow.
Yeah.
And because we're creating as we go along, the potential is limitless.
And the hope is that as the years go, because I mean, obviously, and you can reach out to us now and ask if you want to be a sponsor and be in the gift bag and get your
Yeah.
product out there to couples. That's something we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's also going to be used, this sort of foundational retreat, as a lot of the foundation for what it looks like in the advertisement for next year's retreat, right? So the audience for the social media of the Black Love Retreat is larger than for the people who will be there immediately, right? So it also provides this opportunity for people to come in and have some real evidence of the fact that they're in the community doing the work that needs to be happening, because I don't know if there's any place where people are under the impression that families and relationships don't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Everything, yes.
So, and I think the other part of it, hopefully, that will start to happen is one of the things that we'd really like to do in the future is to film the event,
Yeah.
right? Because there's not a lot of shows that show Black couples who are doing well. And then in that vein, when they're not doing well, there's not a lot of shows that actually show you helpful content around that dysfunction.
Yeah.
Right? So we're
How
just
to cope.
exploiting
Yeah.
how it looks without really getting into what does it mean to get through that? And what does it mean to not just abandon a person?
And what's the root cause of that behavior as well?
Yeah, and I think that's something where the exposure from just that little piece of information coming from the BVI, for me, that matters. It matters to me that people don't look at Caribbean people and think emotionally unintelligent, bad at relationships, abusive,
Aggressive,
right?
yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Because the things that I hear people say about Caribbean women and men in the States
Yeah.
are sad, to be honest, when it comes to relationship and children even, right? There's a lot of association with trauma and violence. And I wish there wasn't, you know, and I don't think there has to be.
Yeah.
But in order for that to be true, we have to heal. We have to heal.
Okay, great. And what you would have touched on previously in terms of the origin of Black Love Retreat would have came somewhat out of the advent of COVID-19. And, you know, obviously, as you alluded to initially, you know, several studies and reports have shown a number of conflict resulting in terms of relationships as a result of, you know, having to quarantine together, etc. And no, that was the origin of Black Love Retreat. My question now basically is, in terms of couples that have reached out to you thus far, have they came to you with any trauma from COVID-19 in terms of that same
Yeah.
experience? Because I know obviously persons would have had such experiences prior to COVID-19.
Yes.
But obviously
Yes,
there were
but
a
it
number,
takes it up a notch.
yeah,
Sure.
a number who would have then, for the first time in years, you know, having to be in a house that long.
Yeah.
Yes.
Generate new problems that they never knew existed before. So speak about some of the comments or testimonies that you would have gotten. Have any of these couples that reached out thus far have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic as well?
I don't know how you could not be. I mean, to be
Whole
honest
world.
with you, right? The
The
whole
whole world
world was
has been-
impacted.
Yeah.
One of the things that actually was interesting is that, you know, some people, they're runners by nature. They're runners, they're track stars, all that. And it starts to be that even in a relationship, the behavior kind of looks like you're taking a break and coming back and taking a break and coming back, either by going to your job and using that as kind of this place where you get to escape
Yeah.
from the relationship, or by literally going to friends or vacations or whatever it might be. And this was one of those times where if that was your coping mechanism,
Yeah.
it was completely removed for you.
Yep.
And so all of the times where you maybe didn't finish an argument, you had to sit in the argument. All the times when you didn't really want to be around your kids, you had to be with your kids. And there were things where people were reaching what I call their threshold, right? And so it's like what Kalisa was saying, the body reacts to stress,
Yeah.
and the body controls how we think.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine that most people were living in a stress state for years,
Yeah.
people's reactions that were coming up were trauma responses, because when we go from stress to overwhelmed, we start to do things that we do when we're traumatized, not things that we do when we're just stressed. What I always say is stress responses are logical, trauma responses aren't. So all that stuff that you do that you're like, that wasn't helpful at all, and that actually probably made it worse, and I probably shouldn't have brought that up or thrown that object across the house. Things were happening, like child abuse was going up, domestic violence was going up, people were breaking up, but then also people were having babies. I mean, people were having babies during this pandemic. And childbirth is kind of minimized as this really beautiful thing, but it can be really traumatic for couples.
Yes.
And so I think that experience of being in the home and fathers being more present in the home with their children actually did something sort of beautiful, but I think it woke people up a little bit to like, whoa, my partner is not like this superwoman, right? She's really vulnerable, and I nearly saw all this horrible stuff happen to her, and now I'm here with this baby. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be head of household and also sensitive and emotionally connected to my partner? Those financial struggles that are coming up right now with the recession, gender issues in couples have been increasing because of that. And in the Black community, economics between the genders, that's always a conversation that's kind of happening, and during hard times, it gets bigger.
And given the many stresses that we have dealt with within the last 5 years, there hasn't been a big debriefing. You know, there hasn't really been a checking in. Persons are just coping in the best way they know how, going from one event to the next, not really taking time to take a break to de-stress. So they're just going from one thing to the next. So we had the hurricanes, then we had what came after, the post-traumatic stress of that, and then from one stress to the next. And now most of these countries, we're heading into a recession, and who knows what else thereafter. So especially within the homes, persons, like we said, stress affects persons differently, and they react in different ways. So just like what Chantal said, there are a lot of abuse that came out of it. There were a lot of positives as well. But we just hope to help families by helping couples, manage their stress better, communicate better, and help to get to the root of what may be triggering their issues.
And it's what people want to do, I think. I think at the heart of it, most people want to figure out how to feel better. Most people want to figure out how to get to peace and calm and communication. But if we don't have the tools, if we don't know the skills, we think it's luck. And it's not luck.
And I know obviously you guys would have mentioned, talking about would have spoken about the challenges of couples, or individuals in terms of COVID, in terms of relationships, etc. What are some of the challenges that you guys face as professionals in obviously trying to heal and repair some of these broken relationships and marriages?
Nothing, it's perfect. No, I'm just kidding. I just be healing folks, so there's no problems. But no, I mean, one of the things that I really face is social media. There's a narrative going on social media about relationships, about mental health, about trauma, and I think sometimes it's really great because people have information they wouldn't have had, and sometimes what ends up happening is two people playing a blame game with a lot of labels, right? I'm triggered, you're toxic, you're narcissistic, these words that we sort of throw on people. It's like, okay, so we did that. How does that fix things? What do we want here? And I think as a therapist, people sometimes come to you and they really have an idea of who the assigned problem is, right? They're like, I'm just here because he really need therapy, but I thought I'd come along and fix him with you and tell you all the background information. And there's no such thing as one person needing to be fixed in a relationship. There might be one person who needs to do the bulk of the work, right? And that's fair. Like some of us have really not had good relationships, and so we have a lot more to learn. That being said, it's a system. You are the way you are because both of y'all are in that relationship. You are not the way you are because one person is doing something. And I think really kind of getting people to that place where they understand, like, both of y'all are gonna have to be accountable. Both of you are gonna have to own your histories and what you're bringing into this, and have good boundaries and be respectful and appreciate one another, even when you don't agree. Right? That is the hardest part of the work. It's not the conflict. It's outside of the conflict, the respect and appreciation that makes conflict easier. Right? And I think people think we need to talk about the problems. Let's get to the problems. But if we keep doing that, that's the whole relationship. And I think people do that in real life too. They harp on the same issue so much, they stop enjoying the outside parts.
And like you said, real life. Sometimes social media is not real life.
Sometimes.
Right? It's often what persons would like to portray. And then their persons portraying a particular life which may not be their reality, And then there's another group of persons who are looking onto this person's portrayed life as the gold standard, right? And that in itself could be positive, could be a source of inspiration, but sometimes it cannot be, right? So we're all about peeling back the layers, having those difficult conversations, and like Chantel says, introspection.
And I always
Yeah.
say the magic is not in the conflict, it's in the repair,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes the fact that all we're doing is having the argument, and we're never getting to the part where we fix and we heal and we understand and we see each other. We think the point is the argument, it's not. The point is that I heard you and I get you and I understand you, and the place we go from here is better than the place we just came from, right? So if we have an argument and the place we go from there is worse, we didn't repair, we didn't heal.
Okay, great. And finally, how can those persons who are interested in joining the retreat do so?
It's pretty simple. I mean, you go to theblackloveretreat.com,
Yeah.
scroll on down, you know, right next to a picture of Miss Kalisa, there will be a button for you to click so you can just sign on up. And there's two choices. You can get a full payment discount and get $300 off if you just pay the full $4,200 right away. If you want to pay over time, it's $45.99, right? It's all less than $5,000. And so you just go ahead, start your payment plan, right? And you can break it up into payments until the retreat starts.
Okay, and that price you would have just mentioned is for the couples.
It's for both people, so it's not $45.99 for each of y'all. That would be wild, but actually I've seen that pricing in couples retreats before. And couples retreats from the same institute that trained us, right? Like me and Mac both come from places of very expensive things, right? And it's like the accessibility of this is you probably wouldn't find a couples retreat that has this much evidence and this much expertise behind it, right, for less than $5,000 anywhere else. But no matter what package you choose, it will be less than $5,000. And you will be able to break it down if you buy them sooner rather than later, right? And so the Black Love Retreat, if you want to get a little deeper and see who our couples therapist is, you can go to the Black Love Retreat on Instagram and check out our social media.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. I want to thank both of you, Ms. Doswell and Dr. Cruikshank, as well for your time.
Of course.
And for obviously making the BVI public aware and the wider region and the world, per se, aware of the event. Hopefully, you know, obviously you would have enlightened a number of persons to actually now want to be a part of the activity.
Yeah, we just want persons to invest in love.
Yeah, like why not? Make your life better.
Okay, great. Well, viewers, you heard all about the Black Love Retreat and their upcoming event, which is slated from February 22nd to 26th, 2023 in the British Virgin Islands. Until next time, I'm Kamal Haynes. Hope you enjoy the content. Bye-bye.